All right, welcome to our Say What podcast here this week. Been doing our Regifter series.
Say what?
Last week we did, the podcast from last week was on your first Regifter message. Mm-hmm. And then this week, this Sunday, you finished up a two-part series, or two-part sermon, I guess, on David and bridges that have been burned.
Yeah, so when we started this series, our Regifter series, I've already talked about Ruth, and we talked about, Judah and Tamar and all that stuff. And so then last week we started a series, or a sermon about how God mends burned bridges. And we did that because, for the most part, burned bridges for a reason. They're out, the bridge is out. So whatever connected, two pieces of land, in this case, it's gone. So it's never be connected again. And for us, that we say that about relationships when they're burned. We'll never be connected again, we'll never be close again, we'll never be friends again, we'll never be whatever again. And so as I started thinking about, the regifting series, and we started going through all these people that we're going to talk about in the lineage of Jesus and the genealogy of Jesus through Matthew 1, we got to David and Bathsheba. Jesus is in direct line of that, and I really want to talk about Bathsheba, and I want to talk about some of her life outside of just the whole David experience. But the more I did, the more I studied, the more I read, I came back and came into that story in 2 Samuel about David having burned bridges in his life rebuilt, mended.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that really kind of spoke to me and struck me, because I want to live in a time where that can be my story, where God mends burned bridges in my life. I'm young, you're young, we got the rest of our life ahead of us, and there's people that you have done life with, that you've worked with, that you've hung out with, that you play ball with, whatever the scenario is, that it would just be a shame if for the rest of your life all you had was 5, 6 years, or 4 years, or 10 years, or whatever it is, and then the rest of your life, nothing. Yeah. Over an experience, over a hurt feeling, over whatever, and I've just really feel like God can mend that, and I wanted to talk about it from a biblical perspective.
And it's something that everybody goes through eventually in life, whether you're the one that something happens to, or you go through something, or you see somebody else go through it and you don't go through it with them, whatever it may be, and you say things like that, like, oh, that bridge has been burned. Mm-hmm. That bridge is, we can't, there's no way we can ever reconnect, there's no way we can ever get back to how it used to be. And we all go through those times in our lives where you have people that fall off, or that never even went with you through that journey, and it's a topic that everybody struggles with at some point. And really, when you're going through it, and when you say stuff like that, you think that bridge can never be reconnected, I can never connect back with that person. It's really kind of a lifelong thought process when you say that, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's never like, oh, one day we'll get back together. Well, you don't think like that. When you say the bridge is burnt, you're saying the bridge is burnt for life.
Done. I'm moving on.
Yeah, you're not reconnecting with that person anymore.
Rear view.
And so when you did this sermon, you were putting it together, I liked it a lot, because there's been times in my life where I feel that way, or people that stick with me, or whatever it may be, and I feel like that bridge is burnt, and you showed us a way to mend that bridge, and how David did it in the Bible.
Yeah, I think, as I look at that, and one of the big things that we talked about in any case, when you look at burned bridges, listen, and if you're listening to this podcast, I was talking to somebody yesterday. They get up in the morning, they take our podcast feed in, they listen to it on their way to work. And then I got another buddy that texts me, and he watches it and listens to it in different ways. So whether you're listening to it or watching it, here's what I want to say is, when you look at mending burned bridges, the easiest avenue is, once a bridge is burned, let it go. That's the easiest avenue. And I would say, in some cases, probably some psychologists would say, move on. Don't let that worry you. Don't get caught up in that. I mean, that's what we teach ourselves. We put our defense mechanism up. We learn how to cope. We learn how to do this. We move on from one thing to another. And in some cases, I would say even that you have to leave that bridge burned because it was dangerous to you. It was dangerous to others. It was a situation you can't dive back into. But those situations are very rare. It's not that they're not there, but on the grand scheme of things, the majority of burned bridges come down to hurt feelings. It come down to neglect, meaning I just didn't keep up with a friendship, or It comes down to opportunity lost, or it comes down to being young and dumb. I mean, it's a shame to think that you would punish somebody, or that you would be punished for the rest of your life for something you did at age 22. Now, we wouldn't normally punish somebody for what they did at age 12 for the rest of their life, but we will punish somebody for what they do at age 22 for the rest of their life, or age 33 for the rest of their life. And it doesn't really make sense. I mean, there has to be some sort of way for people to restore, to try to regain some of that time lost. And so I would say, and that maybe that's not the case for some people, but that's in my heart. That's where I'm at. And so I would say for most people, if you want the easy way out, let the bridge stay burned and move on. And you can use whatever excuse you want to. You can do whatever. And I'm saying if it's outside of that small percentage that it was harmful to me, it was dangerous to me, or whatever it might be. But if it falls in that other majority of, well, I just had my feelings hurt, or I just didn't understand, or I was disappointed, or I neglected the relationship, or whatever it might be, there's a chance that you could see that relationship mended. And it's hard. It's hard because, okay, who's going to make the phone call first? Who's going to pick the phone up and say, hey, just love to talk to you, or missed you, or what have you been into, or whatever? Who's going to make that connection first? Then, how are you going to take those two personalities, or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it is, and they're going to be able to walk and talk together without someone getting upset, angry, frustrated, and making the situation worse, right? And how are you going to go through that? Let's say you're on the end of the burned bridge that was taken advantage of. You were the victim. How are you going to be able to go through that and be compassionate towards the other? Let's say if you're on the other end and you were the person that did whatever that led to the burned bridge, how are you going to enter back into that conversation, and they're going to be willing to listen? So it's very complicated, it's very difficult, it's very hard. And depending on the personalities and who it is, there may be a time frame to it. It may be that it's not mended overnight. It may be just a time that it's mended over time, over years, over weeks, over months, whatever it might be. But I do believe this, and this is where we kind of got to, is I believe that if God can mend my heart and my soul on the cross, and He can mend me every day and every hour of every day, and He can get me through stuff, who am I to say that He can mend me, but He can't mend the things that mean the most to me? Mm-hmm. Right? He can mend me. Okay, so if He can mend me, and He can mend the person that I love, then why can't He mend us together? Now, in some situations, that may not be the case. God may be saying, that's enough, and the consequences of whatever, or you go forever, and it's just a season. But in a lot of cases, that's another small variable. You know, we all live in the same town, we live in the same state, we live whatever, we're going to come into contact with one another, but that's a burned bridge, so I'm not talking to you anymore for 40 years. You know, I mean, at some point, that person meant something to you. So, we just kind of looked at that and realizing that at our church and in our body and in our community, there's people that you need to get over what you're dealing with. Like, yeah. God can heal it. You know, let's let Him heal it.
And you went through that through the Bible with David. Talk about 2 different people, really, and how God mended that bridge. The story, I think, talks about 3 different people, but 2 is what you went through last Sunday and then this past Sunday. First one was Shimmy. Mm-hmm. That's a fun name to say, anyways.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And the way you tell it or whatever, and where the Bible tells it, Shimmy was throwing accusations, calling you out, doing all this stuff. And it was funny because that whole week, I felt like people, and you may have done this, I know I did, anytime someone says something mean or says, all right, Shimmy, I just started calling people Shimmy. Yeah. It was funny. But seeing how God mended that bridge, because that one's, I don't know which one's worse. Those people... I feel like the next one, the Mephibosheth, would have been harder because that's your boy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know you can go through that in a second, but Shimmy, it's like I don't even want him in that bridge. You know what I mean? Like I don't even like you, and that's kind of where David was.
Yeah. So when we look at this, I broke it down. Now, obviously, mending burned bridges and watching God mend those burned bridges is a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different people along that way, right? I mean, you can go down through where you got men or burnt relationships, burnt bridges with bosses or employees, or let's say ex-wife or an ex-husband, or a boyfriend or a lover or an aunt or an uncle or whatever. They're all different avenues. Mm-hmm. So what I try to do is I try to take all these best friend, acquaintance, a ball coach, whatever. I don't know, just burnt bridges come in different forms, but I didn't have time to go through every one of those. So what we did was we looked at 2 Samuel chapter 16 through 2 Samuel chapter 19, told the story of Absalom and David. Absalom runs his dad out of the kingdom. Ultimately, Cliff Notes version here, ultimately after David circles back, Absalom's killed, and then David is put back on the throne. We get to 2 Samuel chapter 19. Everybody's voted. The Bible says that God gave all of them one heart after David addresses the people, and they finally go, you know what? We want you back. We're not mad at you anymore. We realize that you have blood in your home, bloodshed in your home. We know that your son did terrible things to your daughter, his sister. We know that you had an inappropriate relationship with Bathsheba. We know that Uriah is dead. We know that your son out of that died. We know David, all your warts. And so they took that opportunity to get him out of the kingdom and let Absalom do all the dirty work. But then they come back and they bring him back. So during that period of when he's leaving kingdom and before he comes back, Shimei comes up. And the Bible tells us about it. And this is the guy that on your worst days and when you're down, they take that opportunity just to kick you while you're down. Man, they throw rocks. The Bible says about Shimei, he's cursing him and he's throwing rocks at him. And then he says, and God's getting you back for the way you lived your life. And God's getting you back because you have bloodshed in your own family. And God's getting you back. God's getting you. And then it says that David's leaving with his mighty men, and they're all leaving out of Jerusalem. And Shimei's literally kicking dust on David. And his friends are like, dude, this guy, kill him. David goes, man, just let him roll. So what we pick it up as this burned bridge is when David comes back across into the kingdom and about to be restored, the first guy to run up to him is Shimei, because now all of a sudden the weight of the story shifted because David's not out of the kingdom, he's back on the kingdom. And it would seem to matter that Shimei has cursed the king, throw rocks at the king, kicked dust on the king, said awful things to the king, and Shimei's laying in front of him and he just says, could we pretend this didn't happen? Would it be possible that you won't remember what I said? Forgive me, I'm guilty, but let's not remember what I said so that it goes to your heart. Literally, don't have a hard heart towards me based on what I said. Can we start over? Can I act like I didn't say this? And these are the people that I find that are hard to forgive in the men because they've said some pretty awful things. And we say this all the time. It's not so much what a person does to me that I remember, it's the things that they said to me. Mm-hmm. And I hear words and I hear this, and people, they're not there. They're absent of words. They're fully loaded with words. They curse you. They say things. I mean, I've been through things before where I've been David. I was on my way out of the kingdom, and gosh, I mean, everything was said to me and called me, and there's still today, there's some people's faces I can see, and I remember what they said. You know what I mean? I know what they said about me, and some of it was true, some of it was not true, whatever it might have been, but you remember those things. And so in your own life, in that particular time, that's some shimmies in my life. If I look all the way back through high school even, there's people that's been shimmies in your life. They say certain things to you. You're a little kid, you're impressionable, and there's people that say stuff to you. We're pastors, and people say stuff to pastors all the time they wouldn't say to anybody else. So there's shimmies in your life that you remember, and it's like what you said. When we begin to look at these burned bridges, they're the easiest to walk away from because it's like, I don't care what that guy said. I don't care what he thinks about me.
Yeah.
And really you kind of see that out of David. I don't care. Here's the thing that we address though, and you can watch this at lovemygrowth.com when we talk about shimmies. The problem was now Shimei reapproaches and wants to be forgiven and wants to move forward in a relationship with David to some degree. And he asked David to pretend that it didn't happen. And his friends around him do like our friends around us. They go, kill this guy. Get it over with, man. This guy, who's this guy to even talk to us? And David says, who am I to make myself an adversary to you? There's no reason that me and you had to be enemies. I've done stuff too, excuse me. And so he goes, and I'm not even going to kill you. I'm going to let you go. And everybody's kind of in awe of it. But David says, get up. I got my own problems, my own stuff. Go on. We're good. And they work it out. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to let bygones be bygones when you know what people have said about you. And you know how they've handled you. Man, this is true in my own life. I don't know if it's true for you, but it is. It's hard to look at somebody that you hurt it. people come back and tell you that that they were ugly about you and mean to you.
I feel like a lot of people in church, that's where they're at. They're shimmies. Someone goes through something, someone struggles, someone has a sin uncovered or whatever, going through something difficult in their life, and people will say stuff about it like, I knew that was happening, or they got what was coming to them. They say these things, even though that's not Christ's heart at all, but that's what people are. They judge, and Shimei was quick to judge and would say stuff and was saying stuff to the king, and then. But when God gets that person right, and they could have been going through something, dealing with stuff, and they get right with God, they come back, act like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm glad you're back. Yeah. And you sit there and you're looking at this person like, I know what you said about me.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, come on, man.
And you just act like nothing ever happened. And I feel like that's where Shimei was, and that's where. And so what David did to say, listen, we're good. Say, I got problems, you got problems, move forward. That's hard.
That is so hard. Yeah, and to be able to now have a relationship with somebody that was your shimmy. Mm-hmm. And I've been a shimmy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? How many times have I piled on somebody when I knew, that they're down? So I've been a shimmy. So I think that's as David said, who am I to be your adversary? He said, I've been there too. And I think that's the thing about grace and mercy is here's the deal. It's real easy for me to throw rocks and to be a shimmy when I neglect the fact that, man, I am messed up too. I have made mistakes. Naturally what I want to do is mine's not as bad as that guy, so I can say something about that guy because I'm not as jacked up as that guy. But the truth of the matter is yeah, you are. And yes, I am. And so the only time that I learned to keep my mouth shut is after I've been through it and I'm on the other end of that. So now you go back through it and you have a chance to throw rocks and be a shimmy to somebody. I'm like, no, man, I'm good. Yeah. I hope it bounce back because, man, I've been there and it's a struggle. And so when men burn bridges, now the question is if you forgive a shimmy, if you let it go, does that mean y'all have to hang out all the time? Absolutely not. Yeah. In fact, when you study Scripture, shimmy's going to pop back up later on in Scripture, and he hadn't changed at all. This guy's just faking it, but that's not the point. Yeah. The point is how David handled him. There's going to be some cases that some of your best friends out of this whole ride, after life comes back around, you go through a thing, they become a shimmy, they come back around. They could actually be some of your best friends. They could be some of your best acquaintances through life because you both grown, you both healed together. So the idea is why spend the rest of your life with a shimmy in the rearview mirror when God could heal it and change you. Now, a couple of things you have to realize about that, we need to move on, is straighten things out with a shimmy. Oftentimes has to start with a shimmy approaching you. Okay? Because if you approach the shimmy, now you might take that step. That's not the step we saw here in 2 Samuel 19, but David was going about his business, going back to his kingdom, and shimmy came towards him. When you get ready and a shimmy approaches you, that's a moment. That's a moment where we have to pause and go, okay, how am I going to handle this right here? Because everything inside of me wants to pinch your head off and give you everything that's coming your way because of the way you treated me. But we got to pause and go, it's pretty courageous for you to step towards me after everything that you said. This is pretty courageous of you to want to mend this relationship after all the pain that was inflicted, like literally throwing stones, literally hurting me, literally cursing, literally telling me God's getting me back, literally saying, this is pretty big. Now, what am I going to do in this moment? All right, let's work it out. I mean, whoo, that's hard. But I think God honors that. And I would hope that if I needed to step towards somebody and go, I need to apologize for how bad I tried to hurt you, that they would say, let's work this out, and I forgive you. And I think you just move forward and trust that God is working in their life and can heal that. Now, the second person that we got to, and you can watch all that on lowmygrove.com. The second person we got to this week is Mephibosheth. It's weird to say. Yeah. He's in there singing Samuel 19.
Mephibosheth.
Yeah, what'd you think about that?
It's a cool name.
That's good. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I thought pretty good name. When they were good, that'd probably be hard to say.
Mephibosheth and Shimei are completely different because Mephibosheth is a guy. Huh?
I'm trying to think of what I would name. Anyways. Yeah, completely different. I was on a different wavelength.
You were trying to name your kid Mephibosheth?
Yeah, I was trying to think how I would do that.
We just call him Chef.
No, I got to put him Seth. That'd be too close. He has after him. I can't do that.
So This one's different because this is a person that I call Shimmies the antagonizers. Mephibosheth, and I said this on Sunday, they're harder to deal with than Shimmies.
So much worse.
Because these are people that you thought would stick with you no matter what. And they've probably told you that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm with you, man. You're my best buddy. You're my best friend. I don't know.
I mean, you look at the beginning of their time together. David should have killed him.
Should have.
By custom, by
2 Samuel 9, you can look at it. Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son. Jonathan is Saul's son. So Mephibosheth is Saul's grandson. Mephibosheth is one of the last ones around out of the house of Saul to make it. Yeah. David approaches Ziba, his servant, and says, "Is there anybody still alive?" And he goes, "I know Mephibosheth, and both his feet don't work. He's lame, but he's still of the house of Saul. And he's still alive." And David said, "Bring him to me because I want to extend grace to this family and show some kindness to the house of Saul to Mephibosheth." And he gives him everything that he would have been David's from Saul because he took over the kingdom. So he has all Saul's stuff. And he goes, "Mephibosheth, I want you to take all your grandfather's stuff, all of his land, all of his horses, all of his... It's all yours. And, by the way, I want you to move to Jerusalem and enjoy it. And I want you to meet and eat dinner with me every single night." Now, me and you eat lunch together every day. It's very rare that we don't. In fact, when we don't eat lunch together, it's kind of weird. It feels like our whole day's messed up. We've put in hundreds of hours together. I mean, hundreds, thousands of hours, I guess, together in the past almost 4 years. 3, whatever it is. Seeing you married and, ministry and just life, not even just all ministry, just life, just lake surfing, just living it up.
Play basketball together once.
Play what?
Basketball together once.
Yeah. We won. We beat everybody. So we got this whole life together. So it's really easy for me to think, you're my boy. I could count on you. Like, I don't go to bed at night going, "Oh, Tyler might hurt me," or "Tyler might do this," or "Tyler might turn on me." And there's this, we don't sit down and promise each other loyalty to the death. It's just understood. So if everything went south tomorrow and I'm getting hammered here and whatever, getting run out of town or getting hurt or getting, whatever, and you went against and you just turned your back on me, that would be painful. Yeah. That's worse than a shimmy, a guy that starts talking about me that I don't know, that I'm like, who is this guy? Whatever, go back to your house. You are one that I would sit and think about and wonder, what in the world, man? I thought we were friends. That's this burn bridge. That's the one that's more personal. See, this is what I shared on Sunday was, when I think of a shimmy, it makes me angry. So I respond in anger. My emotion is anger. So the natural tendency for shimmies to show up in my life and for me to deal with them is I get mad. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to tell them what like I said several times, was like the Toby Keith song, "How You Like Me Now?" Yeah. I'm angry. You don't have to ask me more than once what I think about the shimmies in my life, because as soon as you ask me, I'm ready to fire it off, and this is what I tell you, right?
Yeah.
This guy, never have to wonder. But Mephibosheths are different because they're an emotional pain. They're not anger. When you think of your Mephibosheths, you don't bust out in anger. You bust out in tears. When you think about Mephibosheths, you don't have a whole lot to say about them. In fact, you don't want to talk about them.
Yeah, somebody you love, and then this weird emotion like they left me, but they were so close to me, and you shut down. You do shut down, and it takes a long time to recover. It takes a long time to heal. These are people that you would have thought the world could turn it on me, but this person, right, will always have my back. And then they don't. And, I've been through some of those moments, and those are the folks that I don't ever want to talk about. Ever. So somebody wants to bring somebody up, and I don't want to talk about them. Right? Somebody wants to remind me, I change the subject. Why? Because it's too hurtful. Again, they remind me of shimmy, I'm ready to fight. Yeah, I'll tell you what I think about that guy. Let's talk about Mephibosheth. Hey, you remember such and such? Or whatever happened to such and such? Or whatever. And Mephibosheth comes by and it shuts you down. And so we talked about
That bridge is hard to mend, not because of anger and what you want to happen to them. That bridge is hard to mend because it means you've got to confront some emotions that you don't want to. It's easier to leave burn because in order to see God heal this one, I've got to look into the eyes of someone that has hurt me so deep that it's easier to not look at them. It's easier to not talk to them. It's easier to not work things out with them because when I go there, I'm an emotional basket case. You know?
If David would have asked me that first question that he asked Mephibosheth, I broke down. I'd been crying.
So the Bible says, and just in case you don't know on our podcast, so the deal is when David gets run out of town, Mephibosheth's living in Jerusalem. Mephibosheth's eating dinner with him every single night. Mephibosheth's his guy, and he tells Mephibosheth, he says, you're not going to be considered one of my servants or just a person here. You're considered family. You're considered one of us. You know, and they were that close. The bond was that close. They spent so much time together. So that when the world turns, so Absalom, David's son, turns on him and runs him out of town, it would have been natural for Mephibosheth to get his stuff and want to go with him. Now, what we do know is, as we look back, is Mephibosheth, and what David didn't know is that Ziba was between David and Mephibosheth. So Ziba was running back and forth, and Ziba was telling David one thing and telling Mephibosheth another, and vice versa. So Mephibosheth truly wanted to go with David, but Ziba told him it won't work, it won't do this. And then he backtracks back over to David and tells David that Mephibosheth's staying because he just can't go with him now and all that stuff. So he gets it stirred up between David and Mephibosheth. Yeah. At the end of the day, though, what Mephibosheth didn't have is he didn't have the courage to dig deep and just go, I don't care what anybody says, that's my guy. It ain't right for him to be run out of town. It ain't right for the shimmies to be hollering at him, telling him he deserves this, and he's got bloodshed in his family, blah, 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 whatever. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but he's my guy. I love him, and I'm going with him. Mm-hmm. So what Mephibosheth does is he stays in the kingdom while David gets run off. So then when Mephibosheth hears that David's on his way back, it's a joyous time because Mephibosheth truly loves David. It's a hurtful time because he doesn't know what to say to him. And the Bible says that when Mephibosheth shows up to David, David's coming back in. Shimei had just left. Mephibosheth rolls into town on his donkey. And the Bible says Mephibosheth looked terrible. Yep. He hadn't been taking care of his feet. His mustache hadn't been trimmed, he hadn't done anything with his hair. I mean, he just looks terrible. He rolls back in, he sees David. And the Bible says, the one line that you just alluded to, David just looks at Mephibosheth and he just says, why didn't you go with me? And you can, like when I say it now, I can feel it, you know? I mean, you feel that because there are literally people in my life that I can think of that fall into that Mephibosheth. There's not very many of them, but there's people that I've given my heart to, my love to, experience to, life to, and when you need it the most, they're gone. They're gone. And in some cases, it's like David, like Ziba told David, see, here's a Mephibosheth too, is David couldn't get to Mephibosheth, Mephibosheth couldn't get to David, they always depended on this one guy in between, this guy's working them both against each other. And David thought that Mephibosheth just was leaving him, didn't care about him. And Mephibosheth thought that David was mad at him because David had told Ziba, said, well, you take whatever was Mephibosheth's, I'm so disappointed. Right? So they're thinking these two different things about each other. They're mad at each other because they're hurt by each other, but they haven't been able to talk to one another. And he just looks at Mephibosheth, and I'm telling you, you can see the tears in David's eyes. You can see him. He's not mad now. He's broken. And he just says, why? And that's where we get with our Mephibosheths, is why. Now, David just asked that question, why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth? You can hear every bit of pain. That's what you want to say to every Mephibosheth. The real question that you want to ask, and it was like I said Sunday, you probably have a whole bunch, and then I'm going to ask them, and then I'm going to say, and then I got all these texts, and I want to send them, right, whatever. The real question that you want to ask is why? Like, what? Why? Now they're going to have answers coming back. Well, I thought this, and I did this, and I did.
They were telling me this.
I'm sorry, and whatever. That's what's going to happen. That's what Mephibosheth does. But everybody that's on the David side of a Mephibosheth, you just want to know why. Now, couple of things is you're not going to ever really know why. The question that you come down to is, what are you going to do with this? Because here's where I'm at as a David to a Mephibosheth is what we do with Mephibosheths in our life is now we want to grill a Mephibosheth and make them earn their way back.
You talked about on Sunday, you forgive them, but then you hold it over them. And,
so what David does...
It's hard not to hold that over them. You know
well,
what I mean?
well, what David does is Mephibosheth gives all these reasons.
They're always going to have excuses.
He deceived me, and then he slandered me to you.
My donkey wasn't there.
Yeah, so all this stuff, and you were like an angel to me. You meant the world to me, and I'm sorry, and I don't know how to keep talking about it, and blah, blah, blah. And David says, all David says, he asks, why? And then right on the end of that, he says, why are you still talking about that? Yeah, that's all he does. He heard him out. He realizes very quickly, you're not going to have the right words. It's not like, there's never been a time Mephibosheth walked back in the picture and you go, oh, yeah, now I get it. No, you never do that. So what you have to do is you have to take the emotional desire for a reason to have your question answered. Set that aside and go, instead of knowing the why, I want to say this, I love the person, so how long are we going to go back and forth with this? Mm-hmm. So the answer, the way David dealt with this, and he accepts the apology, he works it out with Mephibosheth, gives him his kingdom back, his part of that bag that he had split with Ziba. But the thing that David does is David says, how long are you going to talk about these affairs? Meaning, how long are you going to talk about your reasons, your excuses? There's never going to be a good enough excuse. So we got to get to a place where we kick out the excuses. No more excuses. In fact, you don't have to say anything else. We're good. But I want to talk about it. Really, you don't. I need to explain something. No, you don't need to, because in a David and Mephibosheth situation, the pain is so real and deep on both sides. Neither one's right or wrong. Neither one is more hurt than the other, even though both think they're more hurt than the other. Yeah. Right? Remember what I said? The reason Mephibosheth looked so bad was because outwardly he was expressing what was going on inwardly inside of him.
Realized what.
Just like David. Yeah. David was hurt. So, you just, hey, this is over. It's done. Now, one of the things that we got to say too, though, is if I'm going to let things go and keep moving forward in my relationship with a Mephibosheth, it's not fair for me to forgive them, move forward, and allow God to mend that bridge, but then to keep bringing it up. Right? So you got somebody in your life that's a Mephibosheth, they show back up, they're an addict. You've forgiven them, but a year or two later they're having surgery and they're in the hospital, and the doctor comes in after their surgery and starts talking about what they're going to do for post-op, and then here you go on this tirade. Well, you can't be giving them hydrocodone because, they're an addict and they'll get sucked into it and they'll do this and and it's like, dude, we 2 years down and you still bringing that up. Come on. Well, you got to earn trust back. It is impossible. I'm going to say this, and people are going to argue with me. It is almost impossible to earn trust back.
Because it's always there. It's always in your mind.
Always. In fact, if you're trying to earn my trust back, I'm bent towards the thought that you're going to screw this up. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to, but you are. So now I'm hypersensitive to how you act. I'm hypersensitive to what you say. I'm hypersensitive to everything. So that trust is hard. The only way to earn trust back is just give it. If you're going to forgive them and you're going to love them, give them trust. Give them. Now, I understand. I get it. You got to work into that. You can't go blindly and be dumb. But in a Mephibosheth moment, I love you. I care about you. Welcome back. Let's forget all that. Let's start with today and move forward, right? There's never going to be enough to work all that stuff out. We're neither one going to say, "Oh, I get it." Yeah. It's still going to be pain there. So let's move forward with that. And you're going to earn my trust back by just being honest and moving forward. And I'm going to earn your trust back by being honest and moving forward. And we're going to have a blank slate of trust. And I know it's going to be slow, but you put trust on trial, and it's going to take forever. So when you understand, if he had made Mephibosheth stay outside the kingdom forever, and if you do right for the next 2 years, I'll give you half the kingdom back. David knew that wasn't possible. So if you're going to forgive somebody and let somebody back into your life, don't hold it over their head. I would argue it's better just to keep them out. If you're going to hold it over their head, let them. Don't.
You're just going to bring up that hurt every time you do.
It's not fair to the person. Yeah. It's not fair, right? It's not fair. Mm-hmm. If you screwed up, you screwed up.
And you bring that pain back up for yourself too every time you talk about it.
I mean, yeah, at what point do we go, yo, are we good?
Yeah.
And, yeah, okay, I screwed up. What do you want, blood? Let's move forward. There's so many things that are going on today that are so good that you can't enjoy today because you're still worried about what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a Mephibosheth. And then the last person that we talked about very briefly, and I didn't get to this person at all, but we talked about the antagonizer, we talked about the deserter. Both of those are on our website, ilovemygrove.com. But the last one that I wanted to talk about was a guy by the name of Barzillai, and this is a person in the mending bridge understanding. This is the person that stood by you through everything. And the Bible says that the next person that David gets to, it says, now Barzillai the Gittite had come down from Rogelim. So here's the guy, and the Bible says he's 80 years old, and when David was running from Absalom and crossed over into Mahanaim, this is the guy that took care of David. This is the guy that supported him, right? This is the guy while he was out of Jerusalem. He stayed with him and he sustained him, is what it said. And when I talked about mending of burned bridges, it's not just the Shimmeys, it's not just the Mephibosheths, but what about the people that have supported you through the days that were the hardest? Those are the people that we forget. Those are the real people that we neglect. Mephibosheths, man, we think about them all the time. I'll spend the rest of my life with a Mephibosheth. You think about, remember the movie Titanic?
Yeah.
That's the old movie. You haven't seen it in a while, right? It's not real old. It came out when I was in college.
Yeah, I don't know if I was born when it came out.
Hang on, man. All right, so she holds on to this diamond necklace, Blue Hope diamond necklace, her whole life. It's like 84 years. She recounts the story of her love on the Titanic, and she tells it. That's what you're going back through her history.
Yeah.
There in the movie, that's her Mephibosheth. She's thought about him every day.
Yeah.
She lost him. He was gone. It was the love of her life. She spends a couple of days with him, and that's the love of her life. She spends the rest of her life thinking about days that were gone. So Mephibosheth, you don't have to think about. They're always there. Shimmies are always there. They're the people you want to kill every day. Right? I say that jokingly, but it is. It's people you want to prove wrong. It's people you want to get back at. The legends, the supporters, you forget. Mm-hmm. These are the people you forget. They do the most for you, and you forget them. Who was the people that had your back? Who were the people that supported you? Who were the people that came through for you? This is Barzillai. And David, when he goes back to him after he's been talking to the Shimmeys and he's been talking to Mephibosheths and he's got this emotional thing going on, he goes to Barzillai and he goes, but you were the guy that took care of me on my worst days. These are the people that when you get fired, they're the guy that calls you and says, hey, I want to offer you a job. I know you're going through it, man. Let me take care of you. They're the people when you're down on your luck and you can't get through it, they come along and say, hey, you're with me. They're the people that throw their arms around you when you're emotionally distraught. They're the people that are there. They're the first people to walk in when everyone else walks out. That's your Barzillais, right? And they're the people that you forget about the most. So I wanted to mention them, and I'm gonna talk about them some other time during service, not this week. But how did David handle his supporter? And I wrote these things down. And I just want to give these to you because there's people who, in mending burned bridges, this isn't a mending thing. This is an honor thing. You want to honor the people that have stood by you. These are the people that you neglect the most. You are absolutely obsessed with the other ones because I either want to prove it wrong or I want them back. Right? I miss them or I want to kill them. But then these guys get neglected.
And it's not that you even mean to neglect them.
No,
it's just that they're always there. I mean,
always.
They've always been there. You can count on them, but it's understood that you can count on them, that you just forget.
Think about your parents. Think about how often you take for granted your parents.
I mean, especially when you get older, like when I was a kid, I didn't think twice about it. But now I'm like, God, can I live back with you, Mom?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go through life and go, oh, my mom, oh, my dad, oh, my mom, oh, my dad. I mean, where would I be without them? You know, we watched the Heisman Trophy thing this past weekend. Me and my boys, and I made them sit down there and watch it. and Baker Mayfield wins, and he's Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's a good football player. He's excellent at what he does. He's unbelievable as a quarterback. But he's cocky and he's arrogant. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and it takes that to play to that level. I'm convinced of that. So I kind of like it. But he gets to talk about his parents. He looks at his parents. It falls apart. Mm-hmm. You know, just talking about what all they've done for him. He don't live like that every day. Mm-hmm. He's not going into practice every day, have an emotional wreck because it's what his mom did to get him there. These are the Barzillas in your life. They're in your family. They're in your acquaintances. I think when I think about us and staff and life and community, there are Barzillas here that are so consistent. They're so on point that you forget. And I'm so obsessed with the people that are not there or the people that I want to prove wrong. Right? Half the time when we're talking about stuff, we talk about the people that we want to prove. Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there to say that you wouldn't be where you are, and David wouldn't be where he is without this guy. Now he approaches this guy after Mephibosheth walks away, like literally in the next verse. And here's how David handled his Barzillas, the people in his life that stood by him. And I'll give you this, and we'll close this podcast out. But number one, David spoke well of him. David spoke well of him. The Bible says that he was a great man. That Barzillai was a great man. In fact, verse 32, it says, for he was a very great man. How did they know he was a very great man? How did they know? They knew because David had told them. David had said, I'm going to tell you who. You want to know who a great man is? That Barzillai. He's an older dude, but I'm telling you, he is a great man. People don't realize you're a great anything until they either see you in action or hear about it. Mm-hmm. And so they knew that Barzillai was a very great man, is what the Bible says, a very great man, because David had been singing his praises. One of the greatest things you can do for the people that stuck by you, that have supported you, is speak well of them. Is speak well of them. Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to make their heads swell. I don't want to do this. And man, that's such a junky thing to say. Right? Anybody ever said, where did the wheels come off, Tyler? Well, there was this time this guy said something really nice about me, and my head swelled up so big that I just ruined my life. No, I mean that's not the case. If you know somebody and they've done well by you, speak well of them. Tell others, right? You don't want. Okay, here's a fair statement. If you expect other people to not talk about themselves and be conceited, then do it for them. Do it for them, right? Either people are going to find out I'm a great man because you're going to tell them what I've done for them, or for you, or I might have to tell them what I did for you. Now, you're going to fuss if I tell them what I did for you to show that I'm a great man, right? And I don't want to have to do that, but somebody needs to know somebody did something for this guy. But if I tell him, then I am conceited, yeah. And he's on his wrong motives. Okay, that's fair. Oh, fine. But by George, if they did it for you, tell them. Let people know. Let people know that there are still great people around. So this is one of those things. You want to honor somebody? Speak well of them. Speak well of your parents. Speak well of your mom, your dad, your spouse, whoever. Make it known. And that's what David did. But number two, not only did David speak well of him, David tried to promote him. All right? David tried to promote him. It's going to sound funny talking about speaking well of yourself. When we look at our staff that's here, there are people on this staff that are on this staff because of the way they treated me when I was at my worst. Mm-hmm. So now that I have an opportunity and I'm at a place, I try to promote them. It's a little way to get back. David, in his case, was out there being sustained and taken care of by Barzillai. Barzillai didn't know David would go back to the throne, but once David goes back to the throne, David walks back across, gets over there, goes to Barzillai's house, even though he's 80. He's, Barzillai, you're coming with me to the kingdom. I'm putting you up, dude. You're my head counsel. You're going to be my guy. I want to promote you. Now, what we know is Barzillai goes, I'm 80. Yeah. Bro.
I can't do it.
Can I just stay here? I'll just die here. I appreciate it. But the point is David tried to promote him. Listen, if you have people in your life that have taken care of you and stuck by you, done well by you, right? Don't run off and forget them. Don't run off and do your own thing. If you ever have a chance to honor them by speaking well of them and then promoting doesn't mean just getting a job. There's people that have stood by you, and you know what? It's worth your time to gift them. Mm-hmm. Do something well for them, right? Do something good for them. They've poured into your life. Now step up and do something for them. And then, so he turns it down, but then David honors him by saying, "You're right, stay with your family." He honors him by giving him what he wanted. And here's the last thing. No, it's not really. It's two things. David listened to him. He listened to his advice. If you have people in your life that have stood by you through your hard times as well as your good times, they're worth listening to, because they have not only stood by you and proved that they love you and they care for you, but they have invested in your life and they have your best interest in mind. So it would behoove you to keep them around and listen to them and allow them to speak into your life now. Your parents, your pastor, your friends, your spouse, whoever it is, it'd be real wise of you, just like David, to let these people be able to speak into your life. It's funny because a lot of times the people that speak most in our life, if you look at it, in a year from now, they won't even be in your life. It's amazing to me that some people, they'll spend their whole life surrounded by people that love them, where they have a real good connection with somebody that completely loves them, but they will sell out to a friend or an acquaintance, somebody that they've known for a little while, and that person can speak right into their life and do whatever, you know. And then the last thing is he paid it forward. One of the greatest things that you can do when one of the greatest things that can happen is you can pay it forward. And so he couldn't do something great for Barzillai, but what he could do is he could do something great for someone else. And so he paid it forward.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's all right there in 2 Samuel 19. So pay it forward.
It's good.
Yep.
Good word.
Real good.
Regifter, burning bridges, mending burning bridges.
Yep.
It's a good word.
Mending them. So we're gonna go back after the Christmas series this Sunday. We're gonna kick that off, and it's gonna be a good time. And we'll come back with another podcast.
We're getting to go.
Yeah, man.
Subscribe to this video. Share this on Facebook, on Twitter.
Yeah, share it with your friends. And thank you for listening. Keep telling folks about it. It's amazing to me how many people are listening to this and telling us about it.
A guy on Sunday for 2 weeks in a row, 2 different people said they heard our podcast, or saw this from one of you all sharing it, and they showed up at church. So, man, share this podcast with anybody and everybody.
Keep sharing it. Love you. See you.
Bye.